Thanks to Jenny Motkaluk for joining us today. Unfortunately, my camera has decided to quit working, so we'll only see Jenny throughout this interview. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to run for mayor then. Why is this such an important campaign to you?
Well, it is important, and as the campaign unfolds, um, it's being put in more and more stark contrast. The truth is, Mike, that over the last number of years, Winnipeg and Canada has been faced with this incredible, what I can only describe as divisive rhetoric that has been coming from our extreme woke left. It's been coming from some of our elected leaders. And what we're really doing is we're dividing our population into tiny little segments where we have to identify as us versus them. And that's not the Canada that I grew up in. That's not the Canada that I know and love. In Canada, we have freedom of assembly, we have freedom of expression, and we also uphold the rule of law. And I believe that the time for healing is now. I think it's time for Winnipeggers and Canadians to come back together and remember that we're all on the same team, and that regardless of any of the labels that someone might put on you, every single person in this city is a Winnipegger. And that's how we should self-identify, as a Winnipegger, because Winnipeg's the most diverse city in the nation. We have more countries of origin, more languages spoken, and every person that lives here, regardless of whether they arrived yesterday or their family has been here since time immemorial and they're descended from the original people of the Canadian prairies, every single one of us is a Winnipegger, and that's our strength and that's our joy. And the reason I'm running for mayor is because I believe that the time for unity is today, and we have to put aside the divisive rhetoric, and we have to stop labeling each other with awful, awful, awful names. In the summertime, I made a statement which I was shocked to discover was described as controversial. And I'd like to tell you what that was. I said, I love my country like I love my family, unconditionally. And I can't even believe that in 2022, that is a sentence that takes courage to say. I was literally attacked online by what I can only describe as an angry woke mob. And they called me names, awful, vulgar, obscene names, for saying that I love Canada and I love my country. That's literally what this battle is about. Because if we don't value the founding principles of this country, which are freedom, equality, which is very different than equity, and respect for each other, we very soon won't have a country at all, Mike.
What does, really quickly, what does unifying the people of the city look like then for you as a politician? How do you unite the city besides what you described as like divisive rhetoric, I guess?
Well, Mike,
Besides ending, sorry, besides
yeah,
ending
I
divisive
mean,
rhetoric.
that needs to stop, right? That needs to stop. Every single person in this city is entitled to think for themselves, is entitled to their beliefs, is entitled to express those beliefs. And what we've seen decisions being made around upholding the rule of law, depending on the cause of the day, Mike. Those things have to stop. We have to go back to our fundamental principles of freedom, equality, and respect. We have to understand that each and every single one of us has a contribution to make to this city. And that starts with leadership, because leadership is actually the most important thing in this campaign. We're going to talk a lot about policy. Everybody's got great ideas. I think I have some really good ideas about how to move this city forward. But fundamentally, Winnipeggers need to ask themselves, which candidate for mayor shares my values? Because values is what matters the most. At the end of the day, we are asking people, all the candidates for mayor are asking people to let us speak for them, to let us represent them. It is representative democracy that we live in. And we can put forward all the great ideas we want, and the world has a way of unfolding in surprising ways. And so to have confidence that the leaders are going to make decisions that we would generally agree with The most important thing is to select a leader that thinks like you, a leader that you believe shares your values. You know, in 2018, I ran for mayor, and 76,554 Winnipeggers voted for me, by the way. I was very proud of that. And that entire campaign seemed to be all about a crosswalk. Do you remember?
Portage in Maine. Nobody's
Portage in
really brought it
Maine.
up this year.
It was ridiculous that we spent so much time and effort talking about a single issue. And what nobody realized or could have realized in 2018 is that we were actually electing the people who would lead us through a global pandemic. Nobody saw that coming.
Some of the
And so
big issues. Oh, sorry, go
that's what
ahead.
I mean. But that's what I mean when I say we don't know what the world is holding for us. We don't know what's happening next. And so what we need more than anything else are leaders who are principled and ideally share the values that we have, and people that we know have the strength and the courage of their convictions to stand by their principles in the face of even a woke, angry mob that would call you mean names.
Some of the big issues for a lot of people in our audience and throughout the city, we've seen a lot of talk on homelessness, affecting people and poverty. How would you plan as mayor to tackle the growing issue of homelessness in Winnipeg?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you asked me that. And there's no doubt that the issue of homelessness is growing. Homelessness, poverty, and crime, by the way, are all interlinked. Like, let's just be clear about that. You know, over the last 25 years, city government has been actively at war, and that's the only way I can describe it. They've been actively at war with private providers of affordable housing. And let me be clear, the majority of affordable housing in Winnipeg is actually provided by private individuals. It's not public housing. It's not big faceless corporations. It's individuals that own 1, 2, maybe 5 or 10 rental properties. Those are the people that provide affordable housing for us. And we have been chasing those people out of business for 25 years, and we wonder why we have a growing homeless population. There are 4 candidates for mayor today that collectively represent the last 25 years of leadership. And in my view, this homeless crisis is squarely at their feet. They are the ones that are responsible for it. You know, in the 1990s, my dad actually owned a couple of houses in the core area, and he housed 20 individuals in them. Each one of those people had their own home where they were free to live their lives as they chose. They enjoyed safety and security in those houses. And the city government eventually ran him out of business and took those houses away. So that means that there are 20 fewer housing units today than there were before. What did they put in their place? They built a $4 million with public money, $4 million white elephant that today is boarded up and fenced off and houses exactly 0 people. There are 780 vacant houses, boarded up and derelict houses in Winnipeg right now. And those houses are a blight on the community. They are magnets for crime. They're magnets for gangs. And the city government does not have the political will to deal with them, but I do. And my plan is this. I'm going to seize every single one of those vacant and derelict houses under the take title without compensation bylaw. I am going to auction those houses off to private landlords, private individuals who promise and have the capability to restore the homes and rent them out at affordable rates. And when I say affordable rates, Mike, I mean welfare rates. The next step to that is to partner the social service agencies, of which there are literally dozens. I actually think that we have more social service staff than there are homeless people in Winnipeg today. Do you know that? It's horrific the amount of money that we throw at this thing without getting any results. We're going to partner those landlords, the providers of affordable housing, up with the social service providers so that those individuals, the social workers, can go out into the community and offer affordable housing right now to the individuals that need it. Because, Mike, you know, we've heard a lot over the last number of years about truth and reconciliation, and I actually believe that action is greater than symbols. And the greatest act of reconciliation that I can think of is to provide dignified, secure housing to the individuals that are currently living on our streets, bus shelters, and riverbanks. Those individuals, by the way, are overwhelmingly Indigenous. I think we know that. And we need to provide them because with secure and stable housing, because that is the very first step. That's the first step to giving those individuals the opportunity and giving those individuals actually the thing that was taken away from them, which is hope for a happy future.
Crime you mentioned also kind of tied in with homelessness often, but crime a very real problem, obviously, in Winnipeg the past few years, growing and growing. Any other plans to help tackle that issue if elected mayor?
100%, Mike. Again, as I've said, leadership matters. And today we have a chief of police who was quoted in the media when asked about the rising crime rates, when asked about some of the horrific violence that went on this summer. He said, and I'm not even kidding, he said, "This is nothing new. Basically, get used to it. This is the status quo." And to have a leader of the Winnipeg Police Service tell Winnipeggers that this is as good as it gets is simply unacceptable. There are hundreds of hardworking men and women in the Winnipeg Police Service who deserve the tools and the resources and the leadership that they need to do their job well. And that is why, as Mayor of Winnipeg, I will fire the Chief of Police. In fact, I have already called for his firing, and he should be fired today. We need to replace him with someone who is accountable for their results to the taxpayers of Winnipeg, who, by the way, pay them. And furthermore, Mike, the next thing that we need to do is lobby the provincial government to completely abolish the Winnipeg Police Board. My experience with the Winnipeg Police Board is that it is nothing more than a shield between the taxpayers who pay for the services and the Winnipeg Police Service, who is supposed to provide it. We have seen countless examples of our elected officials literally wringing their hands like old women and saying that there's nothing that they can do because the police board. You know, I actually last summer had a member of the Winnipeg Police Board come to visit me more than once at my house. And this person, who has no expertise in public safety, by the way, and was not elected by the people of Winnipeg, just to be clear, right? This person came to me, a private citizen, last year when I was not running for mayor of Winnipeg, and asked me, what can we do about homelessness? What can we do about rising crime? And I was incredulous, Mike, incredulous that this person would ask me, because he is on the police board. He's in a position to affect change. And if our leaders don't have the capability or the will to affect the change that we need, they have to go. You know, we've heard a lot of talk over the years, and this has become very popular, right? To create a citizens committee of oversight for this or that or the other. And here's the thing. Winnipeg has a citizens oversight committee already, and it's meant to oversee all the aspects that the city of Winnipeg is responsible for, including public safety. That citizen committee is called council. It's called council. And those individuals are elected by the people of Winnipeg to speak for them. And if I'm mayor of Winnipeg, the council will speak for the people of Winnipeg, even on matters of public safety.
That police board member talking to you, so you did not take that as a sign of good leadership, engaging with and listening to citizens. To explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, you know what? I will be happy to, because I have no expertise in public safety, Mike. I'm a salesperson. I have a business development consulting firm. My major client right now is a canola oil producer in Alberta. That person came to me and asked me those questions as a demonstration of the fact that they have no idea what they're doing. And if they have no idea what they're doing, they need to go.
A lot of these top issues, it involves not just city jurisdiction, it overlaps with provincial or federal jurisdiction. How do you view your role as mayor, if elected, as interacting with those levels of government and improving relationships with them?
Well, you know, I think it's two things. I think there's two parts to that answer, Mike. You know, the first one is this. I turned 50 years old this year, just by the way. Okay, that's how old I am. And I will tell you that for my entire life, the province and the city have literally been at war. The mayor and the premier have never gotten along, and what they do mostly is point fingers at each other. And it's convenient, I suppose, to have a scapegoat up the street that you can blame your problems on. And that, in the spirit of unity and in the spirit of understanding that we're all on the same team, that's something that needs to change. And if I'm mayor of Winnipeg, I believe that I will have the capability of having productive conversations with our senior levels of government, because I'm not in the business of finger pointing or blaming. However, that said, successive councils, including the current one, have done a really, really, really good job of pretending that they need permission from senior levels of government to do the right thing. And that's true when it comes to building our infrastructure. That's true when it comes to advancing on the homeless issue. That's true when it comes to advancing on matters of public safety. It's true on matters of economic development and job creation, which I really want to get to in this. And so I actually produced my plan for Winnipeg on September the 7th. I published it in its entirety. It is a complete platform, and my entire platform is every single thing that's in there are things that we can do as a city right now, today, without permission of senior levels of government. Because Winnipeggers know that the right time to do the right thing is right now. And some of the examples that I have in there include Centerport. Centerport has been Winnipeg's greatest economic development opportunity for the last 14 years. And if Winnipeg would actually get around to servicing the land that is the Winnipeg section of Centerport, we would create 16,000 high-paying jobs in the city, Mike. And we would generate $80 million a year of brand new tax revenue, which is equivalent to a 12% increase on the current ratepayers. And for 14 years, the city government has not had the political will to make that investment and let Winnipeggers realize the benefits. Do you know that private sector wages, household incomes in Winnipeg, have not increased in the last 20 years, unless, of course, you work for the public sector? Winnipeggers deserve an opportunity for good jobs and money, and I am about jobs and money. I'm a salesperson, I'm a business person. I believe in growing, and I believe that Winnipeg can become the Canadian leader in growth and investment. And we can do it by doing strategic infrastructure investments like Centerport. We can also do it by becoming a much more welcoming jurisdiction. I worked at Economic Development Winnipeg about 10 years ago, and my job was called investment attraction, which means to convince companies from away to come and invest in this city. Over my time there, my clients, the companies that I worked with, invested $135 million into the city and created hundreds of new jobs. And I'm super proud of the work that I did. But I also became aware of the fact that the single greatest barrier to growth and investment and new jobs and money in this city is actually the city government. The city government today actively works against it, and we have been chasing away investment opportunities by private individuals who would choose to risk their money in Winnipeg, and we've been chasing it away literally for 25 years. And that's got to stop, because Winnipeggers deserve an opportunity for a happy life filled with hope and opportunity, and that means good jobs.
How do you see the government the past 20 years, really quickly, how do you see them as chasing away new business development and opportunities?
They do it all the time. They demonize individuals and companies who would make investments in our city. It's a narrative that we see in the news all the time. Not long ago, there was a private company that wanted to do a major development in the area near the old Winnipeg Arena. They wanted to spend hundreds of millions of dollars of private money, not public money, of private money. And they wanted to develop that area. They wanted to build new buildings. They wanted to create mixed use, residential, commercial, and all kinds of great things. And what were they met with? Hostility. Because attitudes matter, Mike. And I can tell you that in the big boardrooms across this country of major companies, many of those companies don't even consider Winnipeg as an option anymore when they're thinking about where to invest. And the reason is because we literally have a hostile government.
We've run out of time, but you've
Yes.
kind of answered my question about, where the money's going to come from. So that's good. And I can include from your platform about how to deal with infrastructure and stuff like that. I was just wondering one thing, and this is said with a lot of respect, right? But you talked early on about divisive rhetoric from political leaders and stuff. But then you also mentioned the angry woke left mob. So just is that not divisive language as well? And could we find a better way forward, maybe, do you feel, even for your own platform?
I believe that we can find a better way forward, and that's why I'm running for mayor, Mike. I'm running for mayor because I believe that there is a better way forward, and I think that we need to remember again our founding principles in Canada of freedom, equality, and respect. And we need to stop calling people names. We need to stop canceling people for sharing their opinions.
Tell us more on where we can find out info on your platform and the promises that your campaign is making and where you'll be and things like that.
Yeah, thanks very much. So my website is jennyformayor.ca. My platform is published there along with every single press release and a lot more information about me and my campaign. And I am spending the next 23 days in front of voters of Winnipeg, sharing my message that we can become a city of opportunity with great jobs and a place where our kids are going to want to stay. So, I will look forward to people can follow me on social media to get more up-to-date information as the campaign unfolds.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, and all the best in the rest of the campaign.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. Bye for now.